Hi College and Career Success, welcome back to your week 6 assignment videos. This one is going to focus specifically on the chapter 10 assignments. So please make sure that you watch the chapter 9 assignment video because it does talk about the chapter 9 assignments, but it also talks about a chapter week 1 reopening and giving you a chance to make up some points. So that is in that video right there. All right, so part of this week, chapter 10, you have a post due by Wednesday along with the chapter 9 one. You have a chapter 10 assignment and a chapter 10 quiz, again, along with the chapter 9 assignments. So let's go ahead and take a look at these. So if I'm scrolling down my chapter 10 discussion, here is my prompt. How do you feel when you do not have enough money for something? So chapter 10 is all about like financial literacy, financial knowledge, and financial planning. So how do you feel when you don't have enough money for something? Will you stop spending on wants to be able to build up your emergency fund? You know, how do you approach basically your money management? So you don't have to get super personal and divulge personal financial information or anything like that. It can be very broad. You can talk generally speaking. How much you want to share is up to you. So just kind of feel like, are you frustrated? Are you sad? Does it bother you? You know, and then how do you approach like the needs versus wants conversation? Okay, so that is your chapter 10 discussion post. So you want to make sure that you post your original response there by Wednesday, of course, along with your chapter 9 post as well. So chapter 10 post by Wednesday, responded to classmates by Sunday. Okay, so then let's go ahead and get into the actual like assignment part of it other than the discussion board. You have a chapter 10 assignment. This is called, there we go, Know Before You Owe. So it's going to open up into this PDF right here that you can type right in. And I'm going to show you where to get this information. So here's an example up here. You're essentially going to have two students, like example 1, example 2, like student 1, student 2, and they're going to have very similar information up to a certain point, and then it's going to vary down here a little bit. I would like you to use your own tuition and fees information. So if we go out here to the Stark State homepage and you go down to the bottom, you'll find where it says tuition and fees, and these are the fees that are effective in fall. They've already taken the summer ones off, so you can just use the fall one. That's totally okay. Find how many credit hours that you're taking, and you can use it based on the schedule you're taking right now. So maybe you're only taking like 3 credits, maybe you're taking 6 credits. Or if you know what classes you're taking in the fall, you can use your fall information. So I am just going to keep it nice and simple. I'm going to say I'm taking 5 credit hours, and that is $1,098. Okay, now if I were doing 8 credit hours, whatever, I would write down the appropriate. But this is good information to know anyway. And then down below, it tells you different fees that are, you know, put on there on top of the regular tuition. And sometimes it just depends on maybe what program you're in. So you can kind of look and get a feel for that. It's good information to know where it's accessed, so you know, for later use. All right, so right here, both of these are going to have the same information. So no matter what, my student A or student 1, whatever, and student 2 have the same tuition and fees. Now, room and board, this is up to you. We do not have, obviously, like dorms on campus. We don't have the kind of meal plans. So you could just leave that as a 0. Or if you know, like, you know what, every semester I want to add in my book money, my gas money, my bus money, whatever it is, you can always add like, I don't know, like $500 right there if you wanted to. If you wanted to leave that blank, that is totally fine also. So how you fill that next line out is up to you. So regardless, then you will add up the totals. And I don't know why this is so like squished in there, but it is what it is. I did not make this document. All right, so there's my total so far, $1,598. Now, what I'm going to do, this is where it's going to start becoming different. Here, I'm going to have a student who has more than enough aid. So they have more scholarships, more grants, more whatever it is than they need. Here is where a student does not have enough. So here I'm going to say, I don't know, let's say they get $2,500, okay? What I'll do is I'm going to take that number and I'm going to subtract these two numbers together. So $1,598 minus $2,500. I'm going to get a negative number. Negative 902. Okay. That means a refund. So if you have a negative number in front of it, I'm getting a refund. So I'm getting about $900 back from my, financial aid package. Now over here, let's say I just don't have enough aid for whatever reason. Let's say I'm just getting like an easy $1,000. So then over there, I will have a positive number. That's how much I'm going to owe. Okay, so that's what's going to be different. So it's going to be the same in these like 3 boxes here. And then you're going to start getting a little different here. Too much aid, not enough aid. Negative number, positive number. That's the first step here. Step 2 is kind of like going through again. And then step 3 is we're going to answer some questions. If you have a program that you can like edit and type right on there, please go ahead and do that. If not, you can just write this in the comment area. So the first question is, what should the student with excess aid, so right here, they have extra aid, do with their check? List 2 ways to use that money wisely. So what are 2 things they could do that would be a smart decision to spend that money? Should they put it back on their loans? Should they buy materials? What should they do? Then what should the student who owes, what should they do to cover the difference? List 4 ways to pay that balance, and then, rank them from least to most desirable, or whatever, most to least. So could they take out more loans, grants, scholarships? Could they borrow money? Could they get a second job? I don't know, whatever you think, for the 4 ways to try to pay that balance. So make sure you save that with your changes so you can, oops, sorry, I have way too many things open over here. So go ahead and save it with your changes and upload it. And again, for those extra questions, you may have to type in your answers out for the file if you don't have a full file submission, if you can't put those responses on that document as well. And again, the responses I'm talking about are right here. You need to answer these questions along with filling out this table. So either have a program where you can type the answers in here or put it into the comment area with that. All right, and the other thing is your Chapter 10 quiz, and we pull up the questions there. If you realized your expenses were greater than your income, what could you do to balance your budget? So think about, again, like wants versus needs. How could you kind of curb your spending? What could you do to balance that budget? Question 2 is talking about a bank versus a credit union, and how should you go about that process? What do you think you should consider when making these decisions? How would you evaluate which option is best for you? Like, how would you decide between a bank and a credit union? 3, if Amari has been asked to lead a discussion about financial literacy and she focuses on credit cards, what should she include in her talk regarding credit cards and financial literacy? Question 4, Danny was just hired to work in the bookstore. This is her first job and she has extra money. She wants to buy a new laptop. Use a financial planning process to help Danny create a plan for purchasing. There are 5 steps. It's in Chapter 10. It walks you through all 5 steps. And so that's what you're doing here. Step 1, what would Danny do? Step 2, what should Danny do? And then 3, 4, 5, all the way through. And then question 5, compare grants, loans, and work study. Find their similarities, find their differences, and then which one do you think is best and why? Okay, so just make sure essentially you answer all parts of all questions in 2 to 5 complete sentences. Head back to Chapter 10 to make sure that you know what's going on. If you're not sure what the 5 steps of the process are, or if you're not sure what work study is, or whatever the case is. So make sure you save and submit that. All right, so those are your Chapter 10 assignments. Please reach out if you have any questions on anything from this week, and have a great one.